do its thing. It's still twisting. We are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We'll let people come on. I am so excited to bring the amazing, fabulous, really just somebody that I've looked up to for a long time and gave me some of my initial opportunities into like speaking and sort of a platform in the industry. I think the first time our cross really our paths really crossed. There we go. Was with Biz Bash. Like I don't even know what year that was, but I really want to welcome her. She doesn't really need a big introduction. We'll get into some of the things that she's doing. Liz King, thanks so much for being on the show with me. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Always good to chat with you.
So you've just done an amazing 2-week long, like 2.5 hours a day Pivot Virtual Summit with how many speakers were there?
I think we ended up with 47 speakers, 43 sessions.
47 rock star speakers. I mean, some of the folks that you had there, I think, big folks in the industry, people that are doing huge things with their own businesses, their own events, coming and rocking out with you every day for 2 weeks. Huge following. Every time I checked in, there was 200 plus people on the Facebook page. Love to hear some of the numbers that you can report back on and some of the lessons learned from it. But Liz, I want to, before we get into talking about Pivot Virtual Summit and Ignite and Event Hustlers, talk about a little bit of the history. When I originally met you, I remember you are the true definition of it, a side hustle entrepreneur. I think you were teaching at Columbia, right?
I was doing events at Columbia University.
You were doing events at Columbia. Okay. Yep. You were doing events at Columbia, which of course I would confuse that because you've been teaching at NYU because you're amazing, right? So, all of the amazing things that you're doing. So can you kind of walk us through your background? At that time when I met you, you were doing events at Columbia. You had already were very deep into Liz King events. I can't even remember. I don't know if you remember our first sort of interactions, but Ed Waffles, infamously on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Your partner in crime, Ed, and you. I'm trying to remember exactly how we fell into the conversation. I know it had something to do with event props and Twitter and pulled together in Biz Bash. Do you remember that better than I do?
I do, because that was like barely my company had just started. And so I was working at Columbia doing events for them. Really didn't know what I wanted to do. And prior to working at Columbia, I didn't even know events was a career. So I started as an administrative role at Columbia, and then just kind of like realized that administrative role was on the events team. That's when I was like, oh, I could do this for a living. Like this would be so cool. So so I was working there. And then after about a year, I started, typical Liz King, I started getting a little bored. So I started my own Twitter account and blog, and it ended up becoming the company, Liz King Events. At the beginning, it was just a Twitter handle. And so the way that we met was I had been tweeting and blogging, and I had just set up my company officially, legally, with a mentor of mine. And Biz Bash actually came to me and said, Liz, could you do our social media lounge on our expo floor? And I said, sure. What's a social media lounge? And they said, well, we don't really know. We want to do something in the center. And I mean, this was 2010 that I met you. It was right in the center of the Javits here in New York City. And it was like a great space they had designed. And then it was like, do what you want. And so I remember going to the bar with some friends and being like, what do I do? This is such a great opportunity. And it was really when people started associating me with technology, because prior to that, that wasn't like a branding genius idea that I had. It was just, I started doing that. And then you and I had actually met through Twitter. And then we got to meet in person at this social media lounge, and I remember the pre-party, and Ed was there. Yeah, we were all just hanging out. So many good people that we met in those early days that we're all still industry friends.
Yeah, no, it's amazing the connections that were made during that time. Event profs was such a huge thing. I went to many of the event camps. I think you were definitely at the one in New York City, right at what was the hotel?
I actually was not even there.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. So, so I was talking to you beforehand about like listening to like the lean startup kind of conversation with minimal viable product, but I was listening to another thing, and I was like, yes, that's Liz, because you were on. I think with who's the very active Jacqueline Bernstein. I think I was watching that interview, and that was great. Jacqueline's a wild personality.
Yes, she is.
But you just going into like, yeah, I'm extroverted online, but not in real life. Like you won't catch me at an event. And I've had the pleasure of like seeing you live like many times. So I feel very, very fortunate and blessed.
Basically, anytime I've ever been live at an event, we've been together at the same event. But other than that, I don't go to any events.
I mean, I think if people want, it's sort of the part of the allure and charm. You want to see Liz King alive, pay her to come and speak. She will be there, right? Let's get it done. Gosh. But and you're a huge draw. I want to talk about, because even then, when you say like, oh, they approached me. I didn't even know what a social media lounge. I knew what a social media lounge was. I was all over. Like I knew, I have all these wonderful ideas, and I think one of the great things, and one of the things that I really admire about you, and I think people are drawn to it as well, is that you're able to put a lot of these ideas that people are learning about and are excited about online really into practice. People are drawn to you. You're able to sell it and package it. So it's an amazing thing to watch, because I get a lot of joy out of seeing you execute. And I think a lot of other people obviously do as well. Talk to me, in terms of that, like, how do you think, for somebody that's getting started in this industry, or if they have a lot of, time in this industry, and I want to get a little bit more into the background, because you went easy on it and didn't give us all the history and all the details, because I want to build up to what you got going on today and how things have changed. But I think this is part of the story. How have you been able to do that? With taking whatever is sort of out there in the ether and actually packaging that up and being able to sell that.
I wish I had some great explanation. I know many people have said like, Liz, you're so great at marketing. You're such a great, salesperson. I'm like, I don't see myself as good at any of that. I think if you're new to the industry, you should just do what I did, which is build what you want to see and just put it out there. And I think the reason why I've had any level of success with, the different projects that I've worked on is because I was creating things that I wanted. And so when I launched TechsyTalk Live, for example, which was our conference that ran for 10 events over a course of 8 years, it was a full day conference all around event technology. It was because, yes, I was a little bit interested in technology. And I was like, what are all these cool tools out there? How do I learn about them? I'm not really seeing anything other than sitting through 5,000 demos. Why don't we put together an event? And it started as a small one night free for everyone kind of thing. It eventually evolved into a full day conference. We're charging, $350 for tickets and getting big sponsorships, but it grew to that. And I can't say I had it was never a master plan that it was going to end up being, TechsyTalk Live number 10, going out with a bang, making a good amount of revenue for the company. It didn't start like that. It just started with, I need this. And so I'm just going to build it. And that's kind of been everything that I've done. It's like, I see what's available out there. And that's to this day what I'm doing. I'm saying, okay, I see that there's a gap here. What could I do to fill that gap? And I think if I'm seeing it, everyone else is seeing it. The question is, who's doing something about it? And that's, it's hard. You have to kind of just put it out there and see if it's interesting. And then, yes, lean startup model, you just kind of evolve it over time and keep growing it and see what it turns into with everyone's input. So it's not something that I feel like I'm the one creating and driving it all. It's very community driven. I put the idea out there, I start it up, and then let's see where we all can take it.
Well, there's definitely a secret sauce because you have the skills around the organization, the skills around the collaboration. I think it takes, talent to be the leader that people want to follow. Getting sponsorship dollars, being confident enough to go out and ask for those sponsorship dollars, because I don't think that it all just fell in your lap. I think that there was some work on your part and from your collaborators. And I definitely understand the aspect of like putting out stuff that people want and being authentic. I think everybody's talking about that. That's the buzzword now. We're in a world that, pivot and follow your passion. But I think the hard work and the, we were talking about before we went live, the Excel spreadsheets and understanding your numbers and understanding how many people you think are going to show up, and having some realistic stuff around that to be able to talk to people about and bringing people to the table is huge. So I talked about a lot of different of the sets of those skills. So maybe you can start talking about some of how you've sort of put some of those things into action as you've built. So we start out, where I kind of run into you 2010, was a beautiful opportunity for me. I got to feel really special with the invite and come be a part of the social media lounge. And I think that's something that, I've certainly learned through the years, inviting people is a really great thing, makes them feel great. And obviously there's something that is powerful in bringing teams together and bringing that collaboration together. But we start out there, and then you're moving along, and you've now built up a company that's been a part of product launches, and you did, do techsytalk and all that. So talk to us about the evolution of Liz King events and, get us to kind of present day. And then we'll start talking about some of the fun stuff and spend some time on Pivot Virtual and all that.
Yeah, so I think the BizBash Social Media Lounge was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I was recognized for kind of a unique perspective. I always say when you're trying to find your niche, right, you want to like look around and see what other people acknowledge about you. Sometimes I can say like, yeah, I'm amazing at X, Y, and Z. But most of the time, the thing that's most attractive to other people is the stuff that other people notice in you that you just take for granted. And technology is one of those things. I am not a super techie, which is ironic, I'm sure, to most people who know me as, the founder of techsytalk. What I'm really good at, what I've found is it's more about the user experience. I'm really good at, for example, testing event technology platforms and understanding whether people will be able to use it easily, whether they're going to understand what it does, whether it's going to impact the quality of events, things like that. And so I basically took that experience with the social media lounge and all these event tech companies, and I started to really focus on that. And over the years of growing techsytalk as the conference and the blog and the website and all the other things, I did a bunch of networking events. Ed and I had this great idea to do an event called Planner Crawl, which is like a venue bar crawl for event planners. So we did like so many different fun things over the years, really building up the techsytalk brand. In addition to my Liz King events company, we started just working with all kinds of companies on corporate events and getting all of that experience. And so kind of those two things grew over time. So I launched the company in 2010. We stopped doing the techsytalk live conference 2017. That had been like our 10th event that we did. And I just felt like that was kind of a good way to wrap things up. At that point, I felt like everyone in the world is doing event technology stuff. When I started in 2010, it was like not really that many people were doing much with it.
Right.
And so I decided in 2017, like, okay, we've done that. And that's when I started kind of transitioning because I started realizing what I felt was missing at that point in 2017 was more of the independent business side. It's like, as an independent business owner in the events industry, I felt like there really wasn't a lot of respect for the role that we play in the industry. It's kind of like, ooh, you're either a corporate in-house planner or you're with an association, or basically if you work for someone with a cool fancy name, everyone loves you. But if you work for Liz King Events, it's kind of like, okay, whoever you are, and they don't realize, I think a lot of people in the industry don't realize that our client list is amazing, and the value that we present to the industry from, financial standpoint is huge, but the education, the connections, the community, the resources, it's just not very specific. It was kind of like, yeah, you can join any other association and just be part of it. So that's kind of what I've been building over the last few years, is a community of people who are independent business owners, and really talking about some of the hard lessons I learned over the course of the last 10 years of running my business, and just trying to share that with people and learn from, again, learning is the key component. I want this information as much as everyone else. So it's like, what is everyone doing that's working? And then, of course, happy to share what I'm doing that's working. And so that's kind of brought me to the present day, where my focus is more around the Event Hustlers, which is our, online Facebook group for independent event business owners, and my Ignite program, and a lot of things around that. So still, obviously very techie. I still am out there, especially now because of COVID. Virtual events obviously are happening all over the place, and I've been doing them for 10 years. So that part of my business is really busy right now, which is great. But the independent piece is also a big passion of mine these days. So that's kind of what I've been up to and how things transitioned. It was like, now I really feel like we need more of this help for the industry.
I'm advertising here the Event Hustlers group, so you can follow up with Liz and see if you can be a part of this group and join in and take part of the information that she's talking about now. I know we got some folks watching. I'd love to get some comments and questions. I posed the question, what is your favorite Liz King event? I got to say, I was definitely a big fan of techsytalk. I went to a couple of the first ones, I think, and then later on the scheduling, because I think they were usually taking place in June, and I was like, knee deep in weddings and graduations and staffing struggles, which they recently switched MPI's World Education Congress to June. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know about the rest of the event planners in the world, but I'm slammed in June. So to your point on like the corporate planner thing, and that it feels like the respect is totally given to somebody that can fly in and fly out, and it's no sweat off their back. They got teams and lots of huge budgets to take care of it. For me, being usually a 2 full-time person kind of operation in the office and 130 part-time staff, me flying out and leaving everything on my director of operations just isn't fair. So June is out, and I same thing. I'm like, no, you're not taking a vacation. You got to stay in the office. So it's all the way around. Like we're in the office. So, but I remember techsytalk being so cool, and having known you before you had planned, you're like, because techsytalk was huge. I mean, that was a big deal. And there was a lot of vendors. It was a full-on trade show and event. And I loved the way that you did it. It was unique. There was a lot of style and pizzazz to it. And truly something that, if you're part of a Liz King event, it wasn't like anything else, right? It was something that was truly different and unique, and definitely a big part of the reason that you've had, I think, such a big following behind you is because you've been dedicated to that user experience and really making it special for everybody. What have been some of the big successes, some of the things that you've sort of looked at and been like, really happy about? I know, we were talking about before about some of the things that you were like, oh, wasn't super happy with that, and getting more comfortable. So I definitely want to get into that conversation about minimum viable product. But what have been some of the things that you've looked at and you're like, it worked out a lot better? I think the social media lounge, that was a moment that you sort of highlighted as something that you said, wow, this is an opportunity. But what are some other things that have come together where you just said, man, this is awesome that I'm doing this?
Well, when I ended TechsyTalk Live, it was a really successful event, and I kind of always compare it to, like, I use the difference between like Friends, the TV show, and Grey's Anatomy. I really wanted to go out on a high note. I feel like that's how Friends was. It ended, it was way too early. Everyone was like, why is this show ending? And granted, that's one of my favorite shows of all time, but it left you with such a good impression because it was over when it was good. Whereas with Grey's Anatomy, I feel like I still am like, that show is still on. Like, what are they trying to do? You just keep like evolving and evolving.
My wife is a fan, and she goes back and she watches the early seasons, even though there's seasons now.
Yeah, and then you're like, I don't even know who all these characters are. There's way too much going on. So when I ended TechsyTalk Live, I will say there was a lot of people who were just saying like, what are you doing? This is crazy. Why would you end it now? But I just knew for myself it was the time. And again, I kind of wanted that Friends feel. I wanted it to be a sweet memory in people's minds and not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's still doing that thing. And so one of the things that I launched when TechsyTalk ended was my Ignite consulting program, which is a one-on-one private client, really deep dive into your business. So it's a 6-month program. It started as a year and I kind of piloted that. And then I realized it's actually better to make like a deeper, shorter commitment. And for me, that has been great in a few ways. First of all, the people who've been through the program are rock stars. And so it's really, when you look at like independent business owners not having the resources that they need, and then being able to see a few businesses go through the program and really see how successful they are and how much it has changed their businesses, that's of course a reward for me. But also, during, then COVID hits, right? And our industry is just destroyed. And yet all the members of that group have, like, every time I check in with them, they're like, this is great. I'm doing really well. My business is not suffering revenue wise, because they're thinking the same way I'm thinking about my business. And so thank God I really haven't had to deal with really big revenue changes in my business. I have had event cancellations and I have lost money. NYU, for example, not running the course I usually run over the summer. So I have had revenue hits, but it has not impacted my business the same way it has for many in the industry, because I really started to do that hard shift a few years ago. Less events, more money, more quality, and different revenue streams. So really, I've heard so many planners say, like, I have to grow my business. Next year, I want to do 100 events. I want to do 150 events. I want to do, it's like, you can only scale so much that way. And so the consulting, the public speaking, even though I really hate being in front of public audiences, or it's still scary to me, all of those things that I've been working on over the course of the years, which to me at the time seemed like kind of ridiculous things to focus on, because again, I don't think I'm like a gifted orator. But look where it ended up bringing me. So when you look at now, I look back and look at all of those different things that I invested my time in. I'm really glad that I made that shift. And for me, that shift came partially because I was, like many people in the industry, getting a little burned out. We were doing events at least monthly, plus stuff on virtual, plus all these other things. So there was definitely a lot of pressure, and I was getting I was a workaholic for sure. But then
I imagine a lot of that is you're doing your work stuff to make money, and then you're doing all this other stuff to stay relevant and market.
Exactly. The brand building. I mean, that's not where I'm making the majority of my money for sure. I make my money from clients, and then all this other stuff, the planner crawls. And I mean, that stuff has all been free all these years, but it's been great for my brand. And we just did the Pivot Virtual Summit free. We had 1,500 people sign up. So yeah, that stuff is really time consuming. And I just started thinking about like how we could evolve this. I don't know. I think, Cameron, you were at this event that I did for the event professionals. It was like at Brooklyn Winery. Were you there?
What was the name of it?
It was just like a meetup. I don't even remember what we were calling it at that point, but that was like 2014 or 15. And it was a big moment for me because we were doing these monthly meetups free for the industry. We asked for people to put their LinkedIn so that we knew they were like legit part of the industry. But we did this holiday event, ugly sweater party at the Brooklyn Winery.
Then
End of the
I was
night.
probably not there.
Okay. I feel like
I
you're.
usually stay away from the ugly sweater. You see how I am. Like ugly sweater
I
is
know.
not who I am. Like they people send me stuff like, and I'm like,
You're like, no, thank you.
yeah, this doesn't. That's not my. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard about this, but the party was great. Everything's wrapping up perfectly. I'm standing in the photo booth with Ed and I think Craig, who's now my husband. This was like one of the first, it was the first Texy Talk event he ever went to. So this
Oh
was his,
wow.
like, this is what I do. End of the night, all of a sudden I hear like a glass drop. I'm thinking it's just someone dropped a glass. I look over and these two girls are full on fighting at my event, throwing wine glasses at each other. Ed and I run to opposite sides and try to like pull them apart. What the police are there within 5 minutes. There's I don't know what's going on. I got hit in the head with a wine glass and I'm bleeding like all down my face.
I definitely was not there. I don't remember that.
It was horrible. And you know what? It was a really big turning point for me because that was the moment I was like, I'm doing all this free stuff, goodwill,
Yes.
positive energy. And then it turns out these girls like came in together. They knew each other and were like
Of
friends
course.
and I guess had some issue with each other. It really had me start thinking. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this stuff, it has to have more purpose. It has to be more qualified, you know. And so thank God that all of these crazy things happen because now when COVID hits, it didn't affect me as much. Thank God.
That's great. No, and I, I feel like you're speaking to me because, I'm running the staffing business. I'm doing it for the last 9 years. We're making income. We're moving along. And in the back of my head all along, while this is all going on, I'm thinking, I need to diversify different revenue streams, have some different things going on. It's part of what I want to do anyways. But part of my story, I have the kids, I have, married man, very settled into my community. So you get comfortable. You get sort of into the routine, and as much as there's fun and challenges and exciting things going on in my life, you get comfortable. And I feel like as we went into pandemic, man, I wish I had worked on that book. I wish I had put this together so that I could offer these services online, so that I could be selling something to my existing clientele. I've never sent out a newsletter ever to my thousands of clients. So it's like, whoa, like I'm missing the bus here. So that's my woes, but I love the fact, and sort of the silver lining of the pandemic is I'm getting some time to focus on it, whether I like it or not,
Right.
to move things in that direction. And, I've started BizDev Live and I really enjoy this. I got hit early on. I was telling you a little bit before we went on about, being a guest on StreamYard with this organization, Master Networks, which is like a BNI type of organization for anybody that's not familiar. Networking organization, very nice. So I'm watching this Facebook Live and they bring me on, send me the invite. I pop on and I'm like super honored. And the lady that's on there, Renee Pride with Chaz Wilson, the co-founder of the organization, Renee Pride hits me with this thing of, you might enjoy what you're doing now more than what you were doing before. And it hit me like, probably like that glass hit you in the neck.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, what are you talking about? The last 9 years, like, you take it personal. You hold on to stuff. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. So that's crazy. So tell me, what was first of all, what was the end all story here? I know that it was a relevation, but did you have to deal with like insurance issues and all that on this event? And then, what did you exactly move into? What was the next move after that happened?
So thank God, no, we didn't have any issues. The two girls, I guess because they knew each other, they decided not to press charges against each other. And one left that night. The other one, interviewed cops. She was really upset and then kind of just like moved on. So thank God we didn't have any huge issues. The venue that had sponsored the event, that was super awkward. But it was a few broken glasses. Thank God it wasn't anything, crazy. I didn't have to go to the hospital, but it was super awkward to be in an ambulance with Craig there for the first time. We had been dating for like 3 weeks. It was super
Wow.
embarrassing.
Well,
But thank God.
trauma brings people closer together, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, thank God we didn't have anything lingering after that. But I stopped doing events for a long time after that, free events. And then, we really focused on techsytalk Live. And it was, maybe a year or two after that I just decided like, okay, we're going to wrap up this chapter. And so now a lot of the, I still do free events like the Pivot Virtual Summit and stuff, but I've obviously been much more focused on risk management, which obviously we do for our clients, but I just really didn't. I was naive to think that I didn't have to do that in the industry as well. So I learned that lesson. And then, it's just really been around cultivating like a really high quality audience. Obviously, LinkedIn checking is not enough. So we've been focused on making sure that anything we do has a very specific target audience, and we're collecting that information. And more importantly, that we're curating relationships with these people so that we know who really has clients and is really, doing the work as compared to people who are looking for free cocktails, which obviously in a COVID world doesn't really matter, but
there's a lot of that, especially in New York City. I mean, in New York City, there's tons of free events, first of all, and there's a lot of people that are just looking to get in the door and do that thing. So it's another skill set to be working in that environment and to deal with promotional marketing events that, there is not a charge to come in and not necessarily a security system in place for dealing with all the craziness. So that's crazy that that's part of your process now with curating these relationships. But I think, we're in this day and age, it's all about relationship marketing. So I think that's a natural place for you to be, and obviously a part of the appeal. Talk to us about the Pivot Virtual Summit, some of the lessons that you took away, and I love that you're saying it was a free event, but I paid my $49 so that I could have access, because I knew there was no way that I was going to be able to be on for 2.5 hours every day. There's a lot of other stuff going on in my life. So talk to us about Pivot Virtual Summit. I'd love to hear about some of the lessons. I'd love to talk about some of the ways that you are building revenue, even into your free stuff, which I think is really important for people to understand, because you can do things to garner that audience and still offset and create value and bring in some income. And obviously it was a free event for so many, but it wasn't free for you, not in terms of time, not in terms of subscriptions and equipment and making sure that you are prepped for it. I know the popular thing these days is like, yes, it took me an hour to do, but it took, 20 years to learn how to do that hour. And that's a popular thing that people put into place in the value proposition, right? But honestly, whenever you do this live stuff, whenever you are putting events together, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time, and it does take money. So talk to us about some of the lessons learned from Pivot Virtual Summit.
Yeah, so it took me a few weeks to put that together. Obviously, as soon as COVID hit, my brain starts turning. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But it took me a few weeks to try to figure out what's everyone else in the industry doing? Again, I always try to look for the gaps. And I also wanted to, of course, think about the attendee engagement experience and all that stuff. So it took me, I don't know, I think I launched it at the end of, so this event was June 1st to the 12th, and I launched it, I think, May 1st or 2nd. So it took me, March and April of really just thinking about where can I provide value? What does this look like? What's the format? Could I get some speakers? All that kind of stuff. And we pulled it together really fast. So then we had basically a month to get it all together. And so the model was free for live access to everything. And then we charged $49 for the recordings. And I think actually it worked really well for a few reasons. First of all, it's great to offer something free, especially during these COVID
Yeah.
times. Everyone is obviously budget friendly, looking for budget. But like you said, it's not free for me to do it. And it was a ton of coordination, 2.5 hours per day. And then I was doing recap emails every day of the notes I learned from each session.
Which those were
And
great, by
then
the way. They were really well done.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of work. And then I was editing all the videos, trying to do it every day and then post them into the online portal for everyone to see on a daily basis. So it was a ton of work. And of course, not only my time, but family and friends' time. I have a baby now, so everyone's got to like chip in and make it happen. And it was a crazy few weeks.
Which I don't spend any time purposely like, what is it like to be a woman in the industry? What is it like having a, because I have kids too, and we all deal with this stuff, but respect due. You're doing this with basic. How old is your baby now?
He'll be 8 months on Monday.
8 months. So, first of all, it's a difficult thing to do. Props to you. But I also put it to all these men that are like excuse about, why they can't do something. Forget the ladies, you're doing a lot, but there's a lot of people out here with excuses why they can't do something. You're doing all this. You got a newborn baby. It's amazing. I'll leave it at that.
Well, Father's Day is coming, and Cameron, it's all about the partnership. You have to have a partner who is going to support all of these crazy ideas. Otherwise, the poor little kid would be crawling all over the floor here. Well,
my
baby right now.
My father had me for the most part on his own while I was growing up. It's not easy being a single parent. For all the folks that are out there that are single parents, man,
it's hard.
We know it's hard. Give us a call. We'll help any way we can. We know.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense. But what I liked about the model was that, we were able to have over 1,500 people sign up to participate. The vast majority, of course, were free. But what that encouraged was the live interaction. And I'm all about engagement, interaction. I did not want to pre-record sessions and just push them through a portal. Everything was live. As I interviewed almost half the guests. So it was a more interactive format. We used StreamYard, just like you're using here, so we could bring comments on screen and do all kinds of fun things. And I wanted that live engagement, and free allows us to do that because that's the only way you could see it. And then I would delete the content at the end of the day from the public channels. And then we sold the recordings. And so, we did actually make a decent amount of money from the recordings because people like yourself, thank you, were, they knew they couldn't commit to participating in all of it. And they wanted to hear it again and whatever. So,
I thought that aspect of it was incredibly smart. And I think that the value that you were offering, because I know there was a lot of people that did like etch that time out of their day. They knew that there was valuable. And, for maybe there was a day they wanted to tune into Jeff Hurt, or there was another day they wanted to tune into Courtney Stanley, or, whatever it is, they scheduled their time and you were offering it. And I think it was a tremendous value to folks. So I think that's a lesson learned, for anybody that's watching, for me, certainly, that you can do something that offers a tremendous amount of value that helps people, and you can also work some profit in there and do some things good for you. I mean, I've been working in the nonprofit space for a long time, and I really have a problem with anybody feeling like you have to be poor to do something good. I don't think that's fair, and it's certainly not true.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, the content was really important. I mean, if you're going to do anything virtual these days, I just posted on LinkedIn yesterday that, quite honestly, most people over the past few months have just been skating by, because the truth is everyone's sitting at home. They're really open to all this new virtual stuff, but the bar is raising really fast. People are getting, as you were talking about before we went live, like just zoomed out live virtual content out. So the content has to be amazing. The quality has to be amazing. The engagement has to be there. Like, the idea that you can just pre-record stuff, it's not going to last long. You could do it for a few more weeks, and then people are going to not care about you at all. So
I think the webinar is already sale. I mean, I'm sure that there's some people that, are tuning into a webinar because their job is telling them they have to, and that sort of thing. But, the moment I'm getting on something and I know that I should be watching it on YouTube or This could be something that could be on YouTube. I'm like, why am I here? Why am I? And it's unfortunate because there's been people that have like put things on different platforms. Um, I was watching something on a Slido platform, and it was just like, there's no way to actually engage. It's alive, but there's no like it just. This didn't need to be live. You could have pre-recorded it. So why didn't you? And why am I here?
Yeah, I mean, people are not dumb. And the webinar, I think honestly, the webinars over the past few years have basically killed people's interest in it because we all know that we can sign up for free and get access to the recordings. So no one's actually planning on going live and participating. And then let's be honest, how many recordings do you have in your inbox? I have a billion that I've never listened to because it's too accessible. So there's kind of that balance. It's like that's where I feel like the revenue model works because you get it live or you don't get it at all. And then if you want it, you got to pay for it. And then the question is, I imagine, and it's actually an interesting question for you. I imagine if you pay for it, you're going to go back and watch it.
I hope so. I'm trying to find the time, and this is something I don't know that you have an answer. We can pose this, answer out and maybe somebody will have a better idea. But, now, I mean, everything from the start of this pandemic, free classes being offered by, I think, Yale and Harvard, some other institutions. There's obviously, we could spend all of our life watching all the content on YouTube and not even crack a tiny percent of what's available on there. Like, how do you decide what is the most important thing to watch? And, the part of the challenge is, yes, I want to go back and watch some of the stuff that I missed with your conference, but there's how much stuff happening next week among the regular schedule. So it's, how do you manage all the content that's out there that's available to learn? And the value of doing that live event, the reason that I would show up for the live event and the reason I did show up for some of the live events with you and with some of the other stuff I'm doing. I'm hosting an MPI lunch bunch. So any event planners that want to get on that train can get in contact with me and we'll get you into our MPI lunch bunch for event planners that we do every Wednesday at 12. Put that out there, right? Another piece of content for you to do. But the reason I'll show up for that, other than the fact that I'm hosting it, is because that's live interaction. You're actually connecting with people. To your point with Pivot Virtual Summit, is that even I spoke to. Let me not get her name wrong. Jody B. Katzman this morning, who I connected with during the summit. We set up a face-to-face. So there was some real interaction, potential for business, definitely a new person that's in my network because of the live interactions. And that's how I've approached these events. I try to connect on LinkedIn and if there's some synergy or something, try to get a face-to-face so that I can actually take part of it. When I go back to content, it's usually for a specific reason. There's something special that I want to learn. It's difficult to go back to it. But I know for your conference, one thing that I will note, and I don't know if anybody had trouble, just like finally I got the email, but just like getting access to the contest is a big deal. So I know that's something that sort of stopped me earlier on in the week. And I don't know when it initially became available. I don't know if it was available on a daily basis or only after the conference, but that was sort of a disconnect for me. I was like, all right, I want to go back and see today's content because it was today, but I don't know exactly how.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the truth. And Craig, my husband, will tell you that I drive him crazy with this stuff. I assumed that we were going to do the recordings post event. Like we do the 2 weeks, then I can edit them, then I'll give access. But I started noticing on like day one that people were like, hey, could I get the recordings? And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's important today. So I want to see it today. I can't, I couldn't be there between 12 and 20 because I'm with my kids. I scheduled in there every day, 1:30 to 2:30. This person's over there. They got their business conference. They got to check in with their job. Like I'm sure there was a whole lot of reasons, but we wanted to see that content that was today because we knew there was 2 weeks going on.
So what we did was I launched an entire learning portal on my website in one day, which I don't have the tech skills to do. So I got it like halfway there. And then my husband had to work until the middle of the night to fix it. And then I was editing videos and putting them on this platform. So we ended up then, so like day 2, we had the platform, but then I wasn't even sure if it worked. It was like brand new. So then whoever was contacting me, I started messaging them like, hey, if you want to get access, I can't guarantee it works, but you could try it for us. And then we started getting good feedback. So then like day 3, I started sending it out to people like, okay, you paid for the access, you can have it. And
yeah, I think a few days in, like I noticed
yeah,
like the live broadcast was available later on in the day. So I don't know if that's exactly what you were talking about, but I definitely took a little bit of advantage of that. Like, but I think that was almost like week 2.
yeah. So we were leaving the lives up all day from the
Okay.
beginning, but they weren't meant for like recorded people to get their access. That was just
Okay.
like in case you were finishing a conversation or you wanted to go back to the thread. And, I didn't want to like cut off the live access at, 2:31 p.m. or
Right.
whatever. But the recordings, yeah, for me, it was just like literally building it on the fly and trying to make sure that it worked. Then we sent out an email, which, whether people got it or not, that's always an interesting question about deliverability of emails.
Craig Caruso said, yeah, never doing that again.
But he doesn't know me well enough because he will definitely be doing it again. That's just what happens. I mean,
Poor,
I just, you
poor
figure it
Craig.
out. I know.
All right, so let's get into this. I've waited long enough. So Moselle, I don't know if anybody else submitted you questions. I was trying to keep track of all of the different screens and whatnot, but I didn't see any other questions come up. But Moselle, who's my good buddy from MPI Westfield, has actually worked in my office. She is a great resource, and talk about like ingenuity. So challenge now, but before we got into pandemic and we started the new year, and I'm like, all right, 2020 is going to be a big wedding year. We're going to get ramped up. I'm opening an NYC office. Moselle Goodwin sourced me office in the Chrysler building for about $220 a month. Just really amazing, really awesome skills. Talk about an event planner and administrator that can really come in and help your business. But anyways, can you touch on the Ignite program and help out Moselle?
Sure. So the Ignite program is what I launched a few years ago, and there's a few components. It is designed for independent event professionals who feel like they're great at what they do, but nobody else knows it. And so it's really about building your thought leadership. So there are a few steps. It's a 6-month program. You and I work independently together. It's a bunch of content every week, and then phone calls every 2 weeks. There's a group component. So there is, what we do is help you define what you really want to do, what you're really, really good at, and really hone in on that. Then define your audience, who's the perfect client to be selling this to, and then define and build your thought leadership. And then the idea is bring in revenue from multiple sources. So there's a lot of components to it. There's the content, there's the one-on-one consulting really specific to your business. There is the group. So the people who've been through the program already, we have a private Facebook group. And so you get access to that. And in that group, we do every month, we spend 3 hours working on our business together. We do quarterly check-ins on video. So there's that community piece to it as well. And it's really a good way what I found is that people who went through the program, in the beginning months, they start firing a lot of clients. That was kind of a funny takeaway that I started to realize. They start realizing, wait, I am spending way too much time working for people who drive me insane, don't pay me enough, don't understand the value I provide. And so the idea, they start to kind of like eliminate that. Then they really start to think about what they really love to do, and they're able to build up revenue sources in those areas. And then it's about the thought leadership. So it's about redesigning your website, looking at your blog strategy. How do you get your words out there so that people know that you're so good at what you are good at, instead of, and so we talk about pricing strategies. It's pretty much a brand overhaul. And the idea is people know your name, and as soon as they hear you, they're like, oh, that's good quality, and they'll pay you what they want. When your clients come to you, they already know that you're the one they need because your marketing is that tight. And so you get better targeted incoming inquiries. you don't have to sell yourself so much. You can raise your prices and you can make money from lots of different sources. This is one of those things like event planners. Why are we not all doing our own events? Why are you not doing your version of TechsyTalk Live? You can make all the ticket revenue, all the sponsorship revenue, because this is what we do for a living. We know how to do it for our clients, but we never think to do it for ourselves. So it's really, if you have ever seen my career and have thought like, how do I do that for myself? That's what Ignite is. It's just showing other people the same path that I've taken. One of those, I learned the hard way. So now I'll share it so people don't have to take so many years to figure it out.
I think that's amazing. And the fact that you're so willing to share that information is amazing. Obviously, I'm assuming this is a paid program, but I mean, I think that, it speaks to a lot of things. We're in an industry where people sort of hold on to what they know, their vendors, they're this, they're that, because they want to be, and that's not your model. And I love that. You're a very giving and sharing person. And you've married somebody that is also giving and sharing. So I think he's working, to make sure that his Father's Day is really, really good.
Exactly.
Because he's working extra hard to make sure we got the links here to go where they need to go to find you. We appreciate you, Craig.
He's a good supporter for sure.
Great. I mean, it's really awesome. I know my wife. You probably never seen her. She stays that way. You think you're introverted, she, and it's amazing because everybody has their talents, because you get her in a room and she's amazing. She can work a room way I can't. And she'll say that she'll be the first to say that she's shy, but you get her and start engaging with her and suddenly she's off to the races.
Yeah.
And people are saying that that's her best friend and I'm like, what? And she's always great at getting the inside information. So everybody has their strengths and you got to play to them. I love it. Talk to me about, you got the Event Hustlers group, you got Ignite, you did Pivot Virtual Summit. How are you sort of tracking all this stuff, figuring out your schedule with an 8-month-old? How do you do it? Can you sort of break down, like, if somebody's struggling right now, they got their kids at the home for first time, they're swearing at the people that are closing the summer camps and schools, and they're just like, this is wrong, get them out of here. I still got work to do. I don't know how to get through a project because I'm not in the office and I got to deal with my husband's socks and
yeah,
all the different challenges. How do I know you were good at this, obviously, before we went into the pandemic, but what's some sort of advice that you would give folks that they want to complete a project? Can speak to me. I know that there's certain things that I need to do on the revenue side and monetization side, and I'm so busy with BizDev Live, and I know there's probably ways that I can monetize this in the future. Maybe there's even ways I can monetize it now that I'm not doing. I know there's some things, but how do you kind of work where you put your time and maximize the hours that you're putting in on a given work day?
So, I mean, I think one of the huge things has been kind of that Ignite business model of just scaling back, which I had to do a few years ago, and really just focusing on a few clients who I work well with. I enjoy doing the work and I'm good at it, and they pay me well for it. Those three things definitely allow me then to take less clients and to not have as many headaches and not as much administrative craziness. And yes, that's an evolving process. Sometimes you start working with someone and realize, oh, they don't fit into this category, and you have to kind of like phase them out, or otherwise, vice versa. So that's part of it, is really making sure that I can maximize the amount of money I'm making for the amount of time that I'm putting in, and just making sure I'm not wasting my time with time wasters, basically, people who have great ideas and no money and just can't execute.
And, so how would you define a time waster? I love it because you had this conversation with Jacqueline Bursey the other day. I thought that was good. And I listen to Gary Vee a lot, and he tells this one story where he, flew to Chicago. he's, there for an hour-long meeting. He's 5 minutes into the meeting, and he just sort of looks around the room, understands that they're not on his same wavelength, walks out, flies back to New York, because there's that confidence in knowing, like, I'm going to work with people that get it. I'm not going to work with people that aren't. So can you speak to that a little bit? I know that's one way to talk about it, but I'm sure you got another spin you could throw on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as bold as Gary Vee, but
well, he's at another revenue level.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He can afford to be like that. But for me, I think it's really honing in on what you're good at. And I think event professionals are chronically bad at this. It's like, what do you do? Oh, I do all kinds of things. I do all kinds of events. I do, whatever you want me to do that you'll give me a paycheck for. And the truth is that's not the way to scale. So really it's about knowing what you do better than anybody else, which is a very reflective, crazy long process. It never ends. And who is the exact person who needs that? And then it's like, a lot of the activities we do in Ignite are like looking at your core values and understanding, for example, fun is one of mine. It has to be fun. If I'm not having fun, I'm not enjoying it. If I don't feel like my clients trust me and they're like micromanaging and they're asking me to report I cannot enjoy doing the work. I am one of those people, like, give me the project. I will do it faster than anybody else can do it, probably, because I work really, really fast. But I don't want to report to you. I don't want to tell you like what the status is today. And I want to do it on my own schedule. So it drives me crazy when clients are like, tell me what time you're going to be working on my project. No, it'll probably be, 9:00 at night. And I don't want to report to you. That's just how I am. Obviously, not everyone is like that. But then those things, and then what your list of non-negotiables are. So once you've kind of figured that out, you then need to look at, what does it look like when I'm onboarding a client? What are the questions I'm asking? Not just, will you give me a check for whatever work you want me to do? But just like a job interview, you're interviewing that person as much as they're interviewing you. And so you learn the questions to ask. What is your team structure like? What's your reporting structure like? Is that going to work for me? And then if it's not, you learn to let it go. And there are clients that I've let go because it wasn't worth the hassle, it wasn't worth the money. And guess what? They've come back and paid me a lot more money and had a lot better structure. There are clients I'm working with now who I would have never thought it was going to work out years ago. And there were years that I didn't get any money from them and I didn't work with them. But over the time, they realized, like, okay, this is what Liz does really well, and I need that, and I'm going to pay for it, and I'm going to work around the parameters. And it takes a long time to get to that place, but that's where the magic is, because then you can have open conversation, like, this wasn't working for me, and this is what I need now, on both sides. And you can come to an arrangement that works much better for all of you and pays better, which is always nice.
No, I love that. And I think that, understanding what your non-negotiables are is a huge thing. I think there's probably a lot of people that are sitting there, watching this now or watching this later whenever somebody gets around to this, that'll say, well, gee, golly whiz, what is my non-negotiable? Like, what does that mean? What I know, you was talking about some of the things that, were non-negotiables for you, in terms of, like, you don't want to be reporting to somebody. And I think about clients that, I've had that are texting me, at ungodly times, or even just during the day. Like, just, what do you mean? Who am I putting on your party? Like, I'm good. Trust me. And, and that's horrible to say it, but it's like, I've been doing this for a long time. I know what I'm doing, and you're coming to me because somebody referred you. You know that I'm going to take care of you. And that being said, nothing's ever guaranteed, and clients, obviously understand what they want and understand the challenges with any company that they're dealing with. There's really savvy customers, but understanding how to be nice in business is a talent and a skill as well. And some people just don't get it.
Yeah.
You can ask the question and up front, and you can ask for certain deliverables. You cannot be a pest. What are some of the non-negotiables that you've noticed for other people that might help other people to understand what their non-negotiables are, maybe with some of the folks that you've had in your Ignite program. And Lisa Millen just chimed in and said, I'd rather not be micromanaged either, since I'm an expert at what I do, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. They don't want to be micromanaged. It's not a leadership skill that I would push on people. Don't micromanage. If anything, you want to go the other way. You want to build accountability and culture in your organization, so that people are doing what you want them to do without you having to be in the middle of it. But back to that question, what are some other things that you have seen for folks that might be non-negotiables for them?
Yeah, and some of the ones I've learned the hard way too. So I'm an eternal optimist. One of the ones I know I've struggled with is a lack of budget or vision. So a client comes to you and they're like, we really want to do this. We don't have the money yet, but we're figuring it out. And we're going to get it through sponsorships and all these other things. And the truth is, I've learned like it doesn't work. And so you're spending so much time trying to get their event off the ground. And I like to believe that it has so much power. I've learned it's just a no. So now I've started to chunk out my services. So it's like, I'll help you develop your sponsorship packages, and then you go and see if you can sell it. And if you can come back and hire me for the rest of it. But really, like, having people just kind of knowing also what your budget non-negotiables are. I'm not willing to work with someone who doesn't have X dollars towards X type of an event or whatever that looks like. So that's one thing. Another non-negotiable, I think, would be around, time, when people want you to work, how often they think it takes. Again, I work really fast. So most people would think that I should be working for them 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week. I can't make those commitments, because I can probably do it all in 2 hours, and I don't need you to be asking me what I've been doing with the other 18 hours. Like, don't pay me by the hour. So, that's one of them. I think also it's the type of client, not just personality, but the type of events. Again, I think event planners notoriously take on everything. Like, oh, right. I can do it all. It's like, you're not really good at doing it all. You don't really like doing it all. And it's funny because
we want to help. We're helpful people.
Yeah, but it's not good for anyone. Like the Ignite program, I'm not actually educating competitors. What I'm doing is helping us all see that we don't actually directly compete. It's like when people come into the program or they apply, it's almost always the same thing. What do? I do events of all kinds. I yada, yada, yada. And it sounds like the entire rest of the industry. When they leave the program, it's like, I am the master at association events. I help them manage their associations and their annual events. Another client does work with administrative professionals and really helps them to understand the event planning piece of their job. Another one of our clients is all about artists. When you really tap into what you're actually good at, you find that you don't have as many competitors as you thought you had in the first place. And so it's really about identifying those skills. It's your non-negotiables are as important as what you're best at and what you love. And if you can really dive into just that, that's what I hate about right now. Everyone's becoming a virtual event expert. It's like, you don't even like it. You're just doing it because you don't have live events right now. And the rest of us who have been doing virtual events are like, now it's a sea of competition, because everyone's using the same term, but no one has the same level of experience. It's not like, obviously with social media, there's no certification that you need to provide to use the word expert. So we really have to think about, like, what are you good at?
I love the social media certification, social media expert, but what does your actual social look like? There's nothing there. There's like you barely know how to do LinkedIn. Get out of here.
Well, this is like the entire world of virtual events right now. I've seen every event planner I know. I've even gotten emails from people saying, I'm pivoting to become a virtual event expert. No, you're learning about virtual events. You may one day in 10 years be a virtual event expert, but for now, like, calm down and just think about, do you even want to be doing this? We don't all have to be virtual event experts right now. The world will go back to live events. And in the meantime, you can still provide a value to your clients. What is that value? It doesn't all have to look the same. But obviously, the first thought is, oh my gosh, we all have to go virtual. We have to start thinking outside the box, or we're just competing with each other, which makes no sense.
What are I want to wrap this up and get some of your final thoughts and make sure we get some details on how people can reach out to you. But what are your thoughts for folks that are in that position where they feel like they got to pivot virtual, but they don't love it. And, because I think there's going to be some people that they're looking at the technology. They do have an understanding of some of the tech, and it's going to be a good lane for them. It'll work out.
Yeah.
For everyone else, that were traditional event planners, folks that really were masters of their domain in terms of live event setups and really just taking care of their clients and taking care of their situations and all the different facets that they did before. What do you recommend to them to get through this time? What do you think their focus should be on? I have some thoughts on it, but I'd love to get your take.
Yeah, I'm kind of obsessed with this idea right now. So I think it's just about figuring out what was the value that you were providing to your clients prior to COVID, and don't think about in-person events. It's not the event. Like, yes, we can manage logistics, we can do speaker management, we go yada yada yada. But what were your clients trying to achieve with that live event? And how did you help them to achieve that? And then you need to look at how can we do that in a different way? So for example, I know for many clients, they are wanting to still have some kind of in-person connection. So could you be helping your clients connect? Let's say your clients were connecting with their target audience by having a live event. Well, instead of having a virtual event, what if you helped your client connect with their target audience by gifting, or by in-person connections, or by one-on-one interviews, or, what are some cool, unique, creative things that you could do to still provide the value to your client? So you can go back to your client and say, hey, we canceled this year's event. Instead of just moving it virtual, what if we did X, Y, and Z that I actually am good at and know about? Because that would help you to still achieve your goals, and it would still spend your money in the same kind of a way, different platform, but for achieving the same thing. And I think, I talked about this a little bit at Pivot, like event professionals have to get out of our heads that the value we provide is putting on an event. That's not the goal. That's the tool. What is the actual value we're providing? It's got to be about something else. And then when you identify that, I think it's easier to understand what's the tool that I could best use to help my clients do that. Virtual events can't be the answer for all of it. It can't.
No, and you see that tool versus strategy play out in, the biggest question over the last month and a half or 2 months, probably. What's the best platform for online events? What's the best platform?
Don't ask me that ever again.
And I love it, and I love your like no nonsense attitude. I tuned in before. I was like, and I was there. I was like ready, like, oh guys, they're going to talk about platforms, and it's like, listen, what are you going to do? What's the goal that you're trying to get to? Because there's a lot of tools that you can use to get there. I think for a lot of folks too, I think the moment should be really used on personal branding. I don't know what your sort of take on this is, but so many folks that have been working so hard in their careers and doing so many things. What do they have to show for it? I know part of pandemic has been that revelation for myself is like, I haven't put a lot of plaques on the wall, so to speak, in terms of all the different things that show my experience, show my expertise, show all the things that I do, because you're busy doing, and getting to that place where you can sort of document those systems and those processes and come out of this where not only your personal brand is stronger, but you're ready to really do business in a way that really drives your performance to other levels. And Anthony Bates says, speaking my language, go Liz, go. Multimodal experiences.
All about it.
Anthony Bates is awesome. It was a great part of the
He's awesome.
Summit. All right, so how can people get in touch with you so that you can help them get past some of the craziness, understand better what their non-negotiables are, and stop worrying about platforms and start worrying about goals?
Yeah, so don't contact me if you're going to ask me what the best virtual platform is. But
non-negotiable.
yeah, I'm at Liz King Events on every social platform, lizkingevents.com, liz@lizkingevents.com for my email. LizKingEvents.com will have all of my event planning stuff for our clients, but there is a community tab, and that's where you'll find Event Hustlers and Ignite, the consulting, the podcast episodes, like all of this industry forward facing stuff. So it's all technically on lizkingevents.com right now. And yeah, I would love to have you guys connect. I am really passionate about the industry and kind of getting to the next level for all of us. And I think if you become better at reaching a target audience and talking about what you do, then I have less competition. So it seems like I'm educating competitors, but really I'm getting rid of them and finding more people to collaborate with.
Mickey. All right. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Liz, thank you so much for doing this with me today. You are truly an event planner rock star and an awesome human being. So thank you for this. I'll let you have the last word and say goodbye to everybody.
Well, thank you. I think exactly what you're doing, Cameron, is what people should be doing. It's the building your thought leadership. And don't forget, social media doesn't have to be a separate effort. It's just sharing the journey you're already on. So when you're working hard, you don't have to take extra time to put it on social. You just have to put it while you're doing it. You know, it's like one and the same. It has to become part of your life. And this is maybe a good time for us to become used to that. It's like you're doing all these shows, you're interviewing so many people, you're growing your network, you're getting people familiar with you, you're putting yourself top of mind. If you are doing all of those things, all the good stuff is going to keep rolling in. And then the key is, as you get busier with work and, you know, the day-to-day gets even busier when we kind of go back to life, don't forget to do all this stuff because it's going to help you. And then, you know, we pray that there is never another COVID. But something is going to come, a bump in the road, your own physical health, something family related, whatever it is, you need to have the structure set up to support your business through these crazy times. And if we rely too much on one thing and one value, it's a sticky place. So I don't want to see our industry be there again.
And Lisa, we'll give Lisa Millen the last word. I'm part of Liz's community. I learned a lot from her.
She's awesome.
She's awesome.
You're awesome.
Hold on for me, Liz.
Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C. Brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.